and I'll never back down. In the middle of the ring is where I lay the smack down. Against all odds, I will always prevail. So when you step to me, it's like hell in a cell.
Greetings and salutations, this is Christopher Daniels. I'm talking to my main man Delzinski right now. Any video game show, any video game channel, any YouTube channel called Vintage Shizzle is indeed hashtag Daniels approved.
Yo, alright guys, Delzinski here. Welcome to another We Talk. It's a We Talk weekend, and for the second week running, I am joined by Smack Talks. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing well. How are you? I hear Weeds has pinched your keys.
He has, yeah. I've been locked out of my office, so to speak, and Weeds has done a runner with the keys. So we're in a alternative location today, recording We Talk. So you can make up wherever you think I am, and then put it in the comment section below. But yeah, I am finally up and running. It's a bit delayed this We Talk, but we are here. And I'm still recovering from going from Monday Night Raw because I actually went to the show at the O2, which was really good fun. But I'm here today, and we've got a lot to talk about, haven't we, Paul?
We have quite a lot today.
We have. We're going to be talking about Daniel Bryan being pulled from the European tour due to an issue with an injury or a concussion, which is now sounding like it's been confirmed. We're going to talk about Austin's issues, plenty of issues today. We're going to talk about Austin's issue with the WWE, where now Vince is slapping on all sorts of injunctions and whatever, getting t-shirts pulled left, right and centre. So this is escalating more and more, so we just want to review the issue between Austin and McMahon. Sounds like the Attitude Era, but we're back again. And then we're going to talk the biggest subject today, which is the WWE Commentary Team, because there's some real problems there. I think everybody knows it, and we're going to underline some of the problems, and something which we haven't discussed prior to coming onto this show today is our commentary scenario. So we've got our 3-person commentary team between us. We don't know what we've picked so far, and we'll reveal them today in the show. So plenty of things to talk about, lots going on We Talk, and first we're going to talk about Daniel Bryan being pulled from the European tour. So what do you think about this, Paul? Do you think he was brought back too soon, coming from the Royal Rumble? Do you think this is a knock-on effect from that, or is this something that is just a minor blip when it comes to Daniel Bryan?
I do. I think it's WWE now paying the penalty for bringing him back too soon. I think myself and a lot of other people say as soon as he come back in time for the Royal Rumble, that it was a case of they rushed him back way too quick, and he should have been given some time to sort of just rest up and get like a bit more time to himself. Because even though he's been cleared to be fit and sort of able to wrestle, it doesn't mean that he's going to be 100%. So I think he's kind of tried to rush back, and they've wanted to bring him back to TV, so they've got another big name superstar there. And because of that, I think he's now paying the price.
Yeah, the trouble is they had no reason to really rush him back. They could have let it go after WrestleMania. They did kind of look to bring him back at the Rumble. They caused so many issues by doing that on themselves. And now the scenario could be, and I know it's a concussion, which they're saying, which they didn't know prior to him going on tour. But the trouble is now, and the big problem is that he's Intercontinental Champion. Will he have to be stripped of the belt? It's almost WrestleMania flashback all over again.
It is. It's deja vu from last year. And I mean, it may not be the same sort of situation in terms of his neck. I think someone mentioned his elbow as well. So if it is a concussion, then it's just bad luck again for Daniel Bryan. He seems to get quite a lot of it. But hopefully it's something that's not going to be a case of ongoing, and it's niggling injuries that's going to stop him going forward. But I think maybe it's just a one-off. I don't know if we'll see a match at Extreme Rules between him and Barrett. I think that might get called off, because I don't know how long you sort of have to recover from a concussion. But if he's been diagnosed with a concussion now, then he won't be cleared to wrestle. So with Extreme Rules just a week away, that could be off the cards.
Yeah, they've got some real problems going to Extreme Rules. I mean, we've got, just to touch on Extreme Rules a little bit, we've got the issue with Paige. It sounds like she's being pulled from the show. Miz could potentially be out of the show as well, which is coming up. And as well, obviously, Daniel Bryan now with his concussion. So it's not looking too good. I mean, WWE didn't plan this very well. Some of these mistakes that they've made could have been easily avoided, particularly something like Paige, which we'll touch on just quickly. I mean, Paige winning the Divas Battle Royal in London and now being taken out because she's apparently got to film a movie. So why didn't WWE, preempt this?
Exactly. It's something that they cannot really excuse because they've known that it's coming. So why would you bother booking out into a match and then having her pulled from the match just days before it?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I know on the website they're still showing the match, so it's not like they're confirming 100% that she's not going to be there. But
did you say she's out indefinitely?
Well, that's what they're reporting on the website, but they still advertise the match. So I was thinking possibly they might drop Naomi in there and have it as a triple threat. And she will be able to come back for that and then get written off properly. But I don't know at the moment. It's a bit up in the air, and this seems to be the whole thing about this Extreme Rules card. And there's some really silly matches in this Extreme Rules pay-per-view. But talking about kisses and all that sort of stuff, it's just, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of this. It seems like the WrestleMania hangover has encountered us again. But Daniel Bryan not being there and Daniel Bryan not being able to defend the Intercontinental Championship is going to be a major problem. And I hope that he sorts himself out in time, but time's against him. And the thing is, we talked about this before we did come on the show, was he hasn't really adapted his style. And you would think that with all the problems he's had with his neck, adding things like the headbutts, which we said, to his arsenal, is not exactly smart.
It's not. It's the worst possible move you could add to it. It's like people have been complaining about the diving headbutt, and it's like, well, okay, maybe if we try something else. How do you fancy doing some headbutts?
That's it, isn't it? And obviously the dive through the middle rope, that's always going to be a problem for him with his neck. I know he's going full force, he's got his arms out, but still, if you land awkward, then you're screwed. So it just, to me, seems like they just be pushing him unnecessarily, and if he reviews his moveset, it might be a best thing for him to do at the moment. I don't understand why he's having to go so hard in all of his matches, because that's what it feels like. He's going extremely fast-paced whenever he's tagged in a tag team match, or when even he's brought in as a singles. The ladder match definitely wouldn't have done him any good.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just being cautious with him, and I know they've started being cautious with him now, pulling him from the tour, but it could be too little too late. And the worst case scenario is we don't want to see Daniel Bryan actually retire on the basis that he has to or he's forced to. And the more times he goes out and the more times he goes off, that speculation just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah,
it does. And I mean, when he come back, a lot of the talk was about how he was going to change his in-ring style, so it was going to be a lot less stressful on his neck and things like that. And it's something that he just hasn't done at all. It's something that, I don't know if, because he wants to put on a great show, I don't know if it's something that he's pushing for to try and push himself, or if it's something that, the WWE have said, well, this is what we want you to do in the ring, and they sort of direct him in that direction. But it's something I think he really should have took a step back from and just took some more time to work out how he was going to do the same kind of things, but without putting his body in so much sort of stress as he has been.
Yeah, that's the trouble. He's that fan of that strong style, and all the kicks and everything like that. It's aggressive, and I think if you remove that from Daniel Bryan, then you kind of lose a bit of Daniel Bryan, and that's the trouble. Is where do you find that middle ground? How aggressive can he be without doing any more damage to like his neck, and obviously he's got the elbow problems as well. It's a really difficult one. It's a tough one, but WWE have got to manage it. Otherwise, they're going to lose him indefinitely. So,
yeah. Well, he said the same thing on, I mentioned to you, the Jericho podcast, which I haven't heard. And I don't think you've heard either. Where he says like he was feeling it now. So he was feeling run down, and the kind of signs are there when you got someone that's saying that. And it makes you wonder, like, why hasn't he been given the chance just to take that time off? Because a year ago or so, where he was the top guy, then sure, they needed him on every show then. But right now, he is the Intercontinental Champion, and they're like pushing that belt. But he doesn't have to be there because there's plenty of other stars on the show now.
It's kind of difficult for him because, I mean, they didn't have to give him the Intercontinental Championship at that ladder match. They could have let Ziggler take it. They could have done a little bit of a feud there and eased off him a little bit. But it's the rumour was that on Monday Night Raw, it was supposed to be Daniel Bryan versus Cena, and I don't know whether both belts would have been on the line, but definitely the United States Championship would have been on the line. But they changed it at the last minute to Barrett versus Cena. So, and that was being with the precaution. But he was in the actual 6-man tag team match after show. So if you were there, you would have got to see Daniel Bryan. But again, it was almost the sort of hot tag, and he came in and he did his business and got the hell out of there. So he didn't spend too much time in the ring, but that was the original plan on Monday. So again, kind of makes you think, what direction are they going with Bryan? Are they trying to then maybe unify the belts and really? This goes back to, again, this whole pushing of these 2 titles and him being the sort of man for the job, but he's not really ready to do that at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't think they'll unify the belts. I think they're going to keep them separate, so they have got them 2 options in there. But since he won the belt, everything that Bryan said is about how to elevate this title. And obviously, getting injured and a concussion, that's not the way to go about it. But it's just that style that he keeps pushing for.
Yeah, well, it is, and that's the problem. I think the way to elevate the title was to have him, because he's so impactful and exciting to watch. But the trouble is, and the counter side is, you can only do that when he's like 100% fit. And I think since he's come back from the Royal Rumble, he's never been 100% fit, and now it's beginning to come back and haunt him again. So, and going in the ring with the guys, if you look at the guys he's got in, he had the ladder match, so he was being chucked around left, right and centre. He's been in there with Sheamus. I mean, Sheamus likes to knock lumps out of people for fun. So he's not exactly being paired with guys that are, easy going. So I just wait for the time when he's paired up with Lesnar. So
I think they'll probably save that.
Yeah, that could be the end of Daniel Bryan if that comes along. So it's interesting what's going on with Bryan. Hopefully he's going to be able to be at Extreme Rules, and he's going to be able to overcome this issue, which apparently now is a concussion. It's not related to the neck. But guys, let us know by the comment section below what you think with Daniel Bryan. Do you think WWE brought him back too soon? Do you think that potentially they should have just held off, let him recover in full? Or do you think as well that the more injuries that he get could shorten his career, and this is the worst possible thing? What do you think as well with the Intercontinental Championship, if he has to give it up? I mean, what does that say for Daniel Bryan, number one, and then what's going to happen to that title? Because like Paul said, the whole point was to elevate the title. Him giving it up is not going to do that. So the next talking point that we've got, and as I said, there's just issues left, right and centre. And this one's an old issue which has kind of come back from the Attitude Era. And that's Austin versus McMahon. And it's like part, 100. Because Stone Cold Steve Austin, the rumour, which it was, because Austin came on his podcast to kind of draw a line under this. I think we talked about it a little bit before when we talked about Jericho's podcast with Cena. But the rumour was that Austin asked a question that Vince McMahon didn't like, and that was about China being put in the Hall of Fame, put Triple H into a predicament that he couldn't get out of, had to then issue statements because China came out of the woodwork, started making videos, hanging around Vince Russo, never a good idea, and all of that came out the bag. And next thing we know, Austin's off of the Tough Enough, and apparently that's because of Austin's filming schedules. He can't do both, but his podcast is pulled from the WWE. And the next thing that's happened, and this is the newest issue, is that now his T-shirts from Pro Wrestling Tees have now come into a discrepancy because of WWE, I think, making complaints about the rights. So, Paul, what is going on with Austin and McMahon? And do you think this is just going to get worse and worse and more heated as the weeks go on?
I'm not really sure what to expect next. I mean, it's a bit petty from the WWE because Austin kind of come out and he downplayed it. So everyone was sort of making a big thing of it. And Austin said, well, it's just scheduling commitments. And that's the reason why he kind of do Tough Enough. But it seems that the WWE were annoyed that he didn't appear at WrestleMania. Again, because he probably had other things planned. And then on top of that, with the Tough Enough thing, they seem to have fired back now. And there does seem to be something that's going on behind the scenes between these two. And for that reason, they've now took down the T-shirts they had on Pro Wrestling Tees. So I mentioned the two to you earlier that have been pulled. I don't know if there was others as well. So you had one that was similar to the NWO logo with the BSR for Austin's Ranch. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was a shot of Austin on the turnbuckle with the words Austin Era. So I could see why they would take down that T-shirt if they didn't own the rights to the image. But at the same time, the NWO style one, like I mentioned, the BWO, the Blue World Order, ECW were selling loads of them t-shirts and they never had any issues. So it's weird to see them taking down this one from Stone Cold.
Yeah, the trouble is like we said earlier, this is copyright just going mental because, you know, this is an ex-employee. They've had a good relationship for quite a long period of time. Austin's done them favours in the past. So you would think that they could let this slide, and then it opens a whole can of worms of what's copyright and what's not. If you think about all the stuff that YouTubers do, they use pictures and thumbnails. I mean, what, you're going to get somebody slapping a copyright claim on somebody that uses a picture of Austin? You know, it's just... It's very, very petty, and it's kind of trademark Vince, isn't it? But I just kind of worry how much this could affect the relationship overall. Because if I was Austin and I was sitting there and I just found out that you've just gone and got 2 of my shirts pulled from the line that I'm selling, I'm not going to be very impressed because already there was an issue with the podcast. Then, obviously, Tough Enough, he couldn't do it because of other commitments, which is not a problem, really. They should have just said, okay, no worries. And what Austin did say on his podcast was that at the time, Austin could have done Tough Enough when they wanted to film it, but they shuffled the deck a bit, and then it made it inconvenient for Austin, so Austin had to turn it down. So if WWE couldn't commit to the time, it was tough luck. Just deal with it, as Batista would say. But it seems to be getting quite petty and quite scrappy. And you can only imagine that Austin can only take so much. And Austin did mention on his podcast, he's been talking openly. I think if you actually listen to his podcast at the moment, he's getting quite critical of just really minor things. Like obviously the John Cena, what do we want to call it, springboard stunner. That move, I wouldn't expect Austin to really have an issue with Cena using that. And I don't necessarily think he does have an issue with him using it, but to be critical of the way that it's hit and, the way that Cena uses it, I kind of wouldn't expect Austin to really go into that. I think because, where Cena is in the company, he's a big name and everything like that. I thought Austin would maybe just say, well, he's using it, good for him. But it's not. It's been more case of, he doesn't agree with the way that he uses the springboard. When he hits the springboard, it's not really how the stunner should be done. And I kind of think that goes back to that kind of petty, scrappy arguments of him being critical of WWE taking shots at him. And I think it just can keep escalating and spiraling out of control, this one.
Yeah, I think it's something that in the past, because of sort of the good relationship between them, then it's something that you would have just overlooked and not mentioned. But because they are now being petty towards each other, it's something that they're bringing up. And I mean, in regards to Cena and the move itself, I think Cena's the kind of guy that would probably ask permission. So he may have asked Austin if he could use the move. But it's just because of Cena's build, it kind of looks awkward the way that he performs it. Where I've seen a similar move in TNA from one of their high flyers, and it was executed so much more, but that's because that's sort of the style that those kind of luchadors use.
Well, that's the trouble, isn't it? He's not built to bounce off the ropes or springboard. If you're looking at this from or maybe use, for example, someone like a Jericho or someone like that, it could be executed pretty well because it's the spring that you get. But Cena kind of just looks off balance every time he goes to do the springboard, and then just looking at the one he did on Raw with Barrett, well, that was almost a certified botchamania moment. He just doesn't look right. And although it's kind of a novelty because he hits it and everyone's like, oh, springboard stunner, that's a great as like a pop, but as a move and as a piece of his arsenal, it's not great. It's kind of like another attribute that Cena doesn't need because he's got a botch sort of signature, and then he's got at least we might get this in WWE 2K16, but it kind of adds to the arsenal of a poor finisher, which is the AA, and then obviously the STF cut out the U. I just think his arsenal, although he's trying to elevate himself, and I do respect him doing his open challenge, but it just kind of makes me think he does struggle to try and reinvent himself, and they just really need to reevaluate his gimmick. But that's probably a talk for another time. But
yeah,
going back to Austin, I worry about this in terms of the relationship between the two, because we would hope that Austin would have one more shot or one more go, one more match, because he said for a while that he's trained and he's got himself in shape. And the more this gets petty, the more this gets deeper in the dirt, the less likely it is that Austin's ever going to want to come back. And I just think Vince needs to sometimes just shut up a little bit, because let's be honest, you invited Austin onto your podcast. Austin can say, well, they invited Austin's podcast on to the WWE Network. That's more like it. And he's welcome to ask any question he likes. If you got an issue, then you surely got to say, don't mention China, don't mention this, don't mention that. But surely the whole aspect of the podcast was to have that open forum. And they seem to have completely backtracked with what the point of these podcasts were.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it'll be interesting to find out just what it is exactly that's the reason behind all this. And, you know, and like you just mentioned with Austin, like everyone seems to want him to come back for one more match, and I would love to see that. And with WrestleMania being in Texas next year, then you would kind of think that would be the perfect time to do that. So maybe there could even be something where they haven't been able to agree on something for him to come back in terms of a contract and maybe have that WrestleMania match. But you know, it's maybe just broken down from there, and then things have just ended up getting petty the way that they have.
Could it be a work?
I don't know. I don't think they'd be pulling T-shirts and things if it was. It's kind of a weird way to go about it, but I don't know. You can never say never in this business.
Austin McMahon, WrestleMania,
Final
Texas.
match.
You never know, do you? This is the trouble with this thing. You think that you know it all, and then they swerve you. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. I think the Tough Enough stuff kind of makes it a bit more real, because obviously you'd expect Austin to be hosting this show, but with him not being there, it opens the door that who's going to host Tough Enough. And I think, Paul, you said there's an announcement. Is it coming Monday?
There is an announcement Monday from Triple H. He's going to make that on Raw, but he hasn't said what it's in regards to. So it could be a date when they're looking to air it. It could be naming the first competitor, but in terms of who's hosting it or the trainers, anything like that, we're still up in there.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about the WWE Commentary Team, but there is somebody that left the commentary team quite recently, and the way it would look or seem is that this man's been kind of touting a lot that he could be open to WWE. The way he does reviews of Raw, he always reviews WWE pay-per-views as well. It kind of makes me think that there is an opportunity that Taz could fit in nicely to Tough Enough. And I think his gimmick, not so much from his WWE days, let's not forget that he made Kurt Angle tap out, I think, or he choked Kurt Angle out. But
an illegal move.
Come on. That was not an illegal move. I can't even say. Can you say, do you know Taz's finishing move, the Taz Mission? Can you say the other version or the other saying of the move, which Joey Styles used to always call it? Do you remember that? Putting you on the spot.
I remember it being called a rear naked choke as an illegal move.
Don't you remember it? Something like I'll try.
Tazlock or something?
No, I'm going to try and say it, and I'll probably get it completely wrong. It was something like the cut Chahal Chamain or something like that. Do you remember Joey Styles ever saying this?
No, I can't remember that.
Got to YouTube it.
I don't even know if it was a proper word or if you were just making up sounds there.
Well, no, honestly, he did used to say something like that. It was something along those lines. Put it in the comment section below if you know the exact wording of it. But he definitely used to say something, because you know Joey Styles used to like call every move, and he used to have different sayings for different moves. And there's a different name for the Taz Mission, which Joey Styles.
It wasn't like JBL where he just comes up with a random name.
Could do, but I have more credibility and respect for Joey Styles than I do JBL as a commentator. So I hope not.
The Stinger Drop.
The Stinger Drop. That's freaking atrocious. Terrible. we will cover JBL shortly. But Taz, I was opened the door already, because I haven't listened to his podcast yet about his views on his own departure, because he has talked about it. But he talks about Raw so much that I would expect that he'd maybe work as an addition to possibly going back to SmackDown.
Yeah, I would like to see him on SmackDown. I think the time that he spent on SmackDown with Michael Cole was some of the best times that he's had.
I think his commentary has declined over the years, because I remember in SmackDown him being all right and pretty good. But as he's come across more to TNA. I think it was the whole thing with the aces and eights. They tried to give him this comedic value as a heel. That kind of works for some people and it doesn't work for others. Like if you look at Jerry Lawler, how good was Jerry Lawler when he used to be a heel commentator, but now he's just sort of fence sitter and don't work. But Taz kind of took the other way. He kind of went a bit more in decline. I'm sure he'll disagree with that, but I think his commentary was better in his WWE days than it was TNA. So I think it gives him a chance to refresh himself, revisit his old commentary style, and I think that if he was offered the opportunity to go back to WWE, I wouldn't be surprised if he wouldn't take that up.
Yeah, I could totally see him doing that. And like we're going to mention shortly in regards to the commentary team, I think it's something that needs changed up. And I think Taz, he'd be a much better addition than JBL, certainly better than Booker T. So he's someone I could definitely see working well.
You're not a fan of Booker T, no?
No, I think there was a commentary line this week on Raw, and Booker was talking about Rosetta Stone, and Michael Cole just says to him, well, maybe you should try the English version. And I think that pretty much sums it up, because a lot of what Booker T says, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's kind of just why have they put them in there in the first place?
Could do with a translator, to be honest, for most of Booker T stuff. Didn't he say as well that didn't he say once was it Shucky Ducky Quack Quack or something like that as well?
Yeah, Shucky Ducky Quack Quack.
I mean, just I always notice as well. Have you ever noticed on the pre-shows that he's never paying any attention to anything? Like Renee Young goes to him and sometimes he's not even listening, and then all of a sudden he's just like he just spurts whatever the first things that come into his head, and then it's like, what did he say, and what's he talking about, and why is he talking about this? And it just never feels like he's even in gear. It doesn't even feel like he knows what's going on around him. So there is a real problem with that, and I don't understand. And we're basically moving into the commentary area. Let us know via the comments box below what you think of Taz. Could he return to WWE? Would you like him to return to WWE? But moving into that commentary team, let's be honest. When they did remove Jerry Lawler, I thought for a moment that was quite a good idea because I thought it would freshen things up. I would have preferred them to remove JBL, don't get me wrong. But when they did remove Jerry Lawler, I was expecting something good to come out of this. And what did they do? They brought in Booker T. And like we've just mentioned, he's very hard to kind of grasp what he's talking about half the time. Sometimes he's in his own little world. And it's not made the team any better. So why is my question?
Well, that's the thing. Why? It's kind of declined. You thought it would sort of improve at that point when they took out Lawler. But the choices that they've brought in, I think the main issue is they haven't brought in commentators, they've brought in wrestlers. So these aren't guys that have been trained for years and years to sort of know exactly what they're doing when they're calling the match. And even though you've got Michael Cole there, who's the play-by-play guy, and he is calling the shots and what's happening, then these other two, they don't really offer too much. They're always either making fun of the situation with the JBL and throwing out random facts or calling moves wrong. And then you've got Booker T, who I don't really know what he adds to the conversation, really. It's just he's been put in there because they've added a third man, and I don't even think they need a third man.
I think he's supposed to be the hype man. So, you always have the one that's a bit eccentric. So, I like to say, for example, with TNA, they had Don West, who would just be really out there, and I think that's what Booker T's supposed to do, but I don't think he does it properly because he doesn't know what's going on. So
yeah, he does it more than sort of the other two, and I can definitely see that point. I mean, you only have to listen to the WWE games with Michael Cole's commentary, and someone wins the title, and he's like, "Oh, he's won the match," and it's like there's just no hype there at all. So they do need someone like that, but I still don't know if Booker T is the right person.
Would you be satisfied if every week you said Chucky Ducky Quack Quack?
I don't think that'll quite do it. I think you need something else. Maybe if you can just refine it a little bit.
Do you know what I think the trouble is he wasn't, when you think about Booker T, do you think he was one of the best talkers, really? Like I wouldn't go that far. And then I look around and even maybe this is a bit of a long shot, but even somebody like a Santino would do a better talking job. And he would add a better, if you're looking for somebody to provide some comedy, that guy would be better than like your drafted in legend, which is Booker T. I think even something like that, like if you want a comedy value, which I don't think many people want, but if you were going down that route, there's a lot better choices that talk the talk in terms of that they can be entertaining and they can work off the cuff. And I don't think Booker T can do any of those things. And I think then guys like someone who just talked every week because he didn't really wrestle very much was someone like Santino. And I just think, again, there's better options out there. JBL was the same. JBL was just a straight bold promo person. He never really did much more. Like, I think someone like The Miz would be very good on commentary if you're going to pick a superstar to do it, because The Miz likes to talk a lot, and I think that's what you need as a commentator. But if you're looking at superstars, they're the sort of guys that I'd be probably looking more towards than... JBL doesn't add anything. JBL adds zero value to his commentary team. Week after week, he gets the moves wrong. He goes off on tangents. The way that he's buried, or it might not be him through the headset, but the way that he's categorically buried the Ascension on his own has just been complete and utter garbage. The way he buried this, and I'm using the word buried a lot, I don't like using it, but he did do these things. He buried the Sting match by saying that it was us against them. It wasn't about WCW versus WWE, so clearly he got the commentary completely wrong that night. And he just goes on and on and on. And do you know what I found very interesting? At Raw, when I first got there at Raw, at the O2, sitting there, and obviously they bring them out. First they bring out Michael Cole, and I've got to say, Michael Cole's got the most hideous Titantron you have ever seen. Jesus Christ. Try and watch it, try and catch it, or see it. It's just... Is
it a sight to behold?
It's for the coal miners, that's for sure. It's just devastating. It's just an onslaught of terrible moments from Michael Cole. But so he comes out and he gets a mediocre reception, bit of a boo, bit of a not. Booker T comes out, standardised cheers. But the guy that really fails it massively is JBL comes out to enormous cheers, and I don't get it. Do you cheer? I mean, I kind of understand. Yeah, you cheer for him because he's a bit of a legend in terms of wrestling, but why are you cheering for him now? Because he's killing the commentary team.
Well, that's the thing. I think a lot of it is just sort of being polite and respecting what he's done, respecting that he is like someone that's been a great wrestler in the past. But in terms of his commentary, then surely they're not cheering for that, because that has been terrible. And like you've just said, I think the main problem is when you think of like great talkers in the WWE, JBL and Booker T aren't two names that would be pretty high up in that list. Where I can get what you're saying about Santino. I think he's someone that works well on a mic and he adapts to certain situations. So he does bring that comedy aspect, which I think it could work in moments. I don't know if I would be able to sit through 3 hours of Santino. That's quite extreme.
That is extreme.
Think of that.
That is extreme.
Maybe start him out on NXT for an hour first, just see how that goes. But yeah, I think you're right. I think they need to stick with people that, if they are going to use wrestlers on the commentary team, then people that are much more adapt on the mic and they can sort of just offer a bit more as opposed to like the odd words and like little things like that. So Taz is a great example actually, because he was a wrestler that went into commentary, and I think he's like done a great job of transitioning. So someone like a Taz, where even he wasn't really a speaker in his sort of early days in ECW and the WWE. So he's transitioned well. So I think it is there. It's possible for them to do that. But I think if they picked someone that is used to using a mic and putting out great promos and things like that, then that would work a lot better. I would love to see someone like Fandango, like someone like that, because if you listen to his interviews, then he's really good the way that he comes across, and so he can be funny, he can do like different things, where at JBL it's one standard direction. It's not like you can go off in different ways.
Have you ever noticed with JBL when he gets into that depressed state as well? Like if you watch the WrestleMania match with The Undertaker, or the WrestleMania the Brock Lesnar Undertaker match, he just almost gives away, or he tries so much to make it clear that there's a problem. So it's like, oh God, Cole, it's all going wrong, and it's just like the tone of his voice puts you in a frame of mind where you think, you're almost as such trying to tell me what's going to happen, and I don't need you to do that. Or it's so negative to the point, like with the Ascension, the way he's been just 100% negative. There's no positives that come out of it. It's just like you're going way overboard with this stuff. Jack Swagger's a great example. When Jack Swagger lost to Rusev, how much did he destroy Jack Swagger? Has Swagger even come back from that? No.
Well, that's the thing. He kind of brings it down at times, and it's just like it drones on, and he will kind of ruin matches. And like you said before, I don't know if I would go as far as saying burying certain superstars, but he does bring them down when he should really be putting over them guys.
Well, that's what's the worrying bit, is the commentary team are supposed to enhance all the superstars, and they just don't do that. I mean, even calling the moves, they don't. 9 times out of 10, they're too busy promoting the WWE Network, and that's the other side of all the issues, is the things like, over the amount of promotion. Why can't they just use adverts for that? Have these little cut scenes and stuff, instead of just constantly being told through the headset to drop $9.99 hints and all this stuff. And it's not just the one standard advert. Then they start trying to make their own jokes out of it. And I go back to something like Jerry Lawler. Back in the day when Jerry Lawler was a heel commentator, he was brilliant. With Vince, he was a good heel commentator. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. The trouble is with over the time, they've decided to make him the face, and then someone like JBL the heel. And I actually think that it should be Jerry Lawler who's still the heel commentator, but because he did such a good job at it, that's what his persona was. He was the king, and he was obnoxious, and he was rude, and they never needed to divert from that. And because they lost people like JR, they decided to make Jerry Lawler the nice guy of the team, and that's where he lost his novelty, because he became a bit boring and a bit bland and a bit plain, and I guess that's why they moved him on. But then they moved him on for someone like Booker T, who's just eccentric. So it just, to me, I just find it wrong all the way through, the way that they've kind of transitioned the commentary team. It all went downhill when Jim Ross moved away, and they've never re-established getting a hype man. And when they have had good guys, they haven't really utilised them, like Joey Styles. I mean, yeah. Joey Styles was good. They've got Heyman there. Heyman could work commentary if he needed to. They have options. They just don't choose to use them. And then we can look at other ends of the spectrum with like your Renee Youngs of the world. So let's actually put it to you. So we talked about we was going to give our commentary team. So yeah. What is your 3-person commentary team? And we'll see whether we get a difference of opinion, and we can maybe criticise or say what we think about that option and that choice. So, what was your 3? Who was your 3-person team for Monday Night Raw?
Are we talking dream scenario or currently employed, or?
Well, let's say that they would have to be able to do the job now.
If it was a dream scenario, and they can do the job now, I would go with the 3 team of good old Jamal. Jamal?
Jamal.
So we've got Jim Ross in there, just to clear that up.
Gotcha.
Jim Ross, William Regal. I think he does a great job when he's been on NXT. And I think he's someone that brings something else to it, so he's got the knowledge there as well. I mean, Jimar, like, he's got so much knowledge anyway, but I think Regal will really add to that, and sort of going back and forth between the two of them. And then the 3rd person, which I would bring in, would be Renee Young, because I think it's about time that we had something completely different in there. And Renee does such a good job, not just on pre-shows and things, but when she's done commentary on NXT. And I think she brings something completely different, and having a woman's perspective in there, it just adds to it and gives a sort of more all-round feel to it. And then the way that she can interact with Jim R and Regal, I think that'll work really well.
She doesn't really get fazed by anything. That's the best bit about her. She kind of like, she's a good example of someone that can work off the cuff. If something goes wrong, she just kind of rolls with a punch. And I think that's what Byron Saxton couldn't do. That was the problem.
That's exactly like what I mean. I think you need someone in there that can adapt to what's going on. And Renee is someone that's proven that she can do that. Whereas what we got with Byron Saxton, he couldn't do that. So I think Renee would be a perfect choice. So that would be my dream 3. If I went for a realistic 3, because I don't see Jim Ross coming back, then I would go with someone like a Joey Styles, who I think is he in charge of WWE.com still?
Yeah, I think he does that on the social media side of WWE. So yeah, he's still there. He's still under contract. They can pull him as and when they like.
Yeah, so I think maybe Joey Styles, but he kind of goes over the top at times, so I don't know if it really worked too well. It depends who you're pairing him with. But then someone that they let go and is now with TNA, with Josh Matthews, I think he's someone that they could have really invested the future in, and I think he could have been the next play-by-play guy. So realistically, maybe I would go with one of them and then Renee and Regal.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good choice. I was kind of surprised that you chose William Regal. I kind of expected you to choose Renee Young, and I thought JR would be in there. But yeah, it's just kind of a interesting decision with Regal. But Regal is good. Regal is good at talking, and he kind of brings a bit more a good thought process to things as well, I think. He thinks things out when he says it. It's not just blah, 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 and blurts it all out. So,
he does, yeah. There's always like something behind what he's saying. It's not just something that he's saying just for the sake of it. And when you compare that to the likes of JBL and Booker T, I think that's just miles above it.
Yeah, so I actually think that's a really good choice. And I liked your idea of with Josh Matthews. And actually saying that, there is a guy who I didn't put on my list, but a guy who I think's come on like tenfold since leaving WWE, and that's Matt Striker. I'm like really impressed with Matt Striker. I watched Wrestle Kingdom 9, and I thought him and JR, like, that was a great commentary team. I loved that. Matt Striker seems to do a lot of homework, and I never noticed this in the WWE. In fact, I kind of discarded him as a commentator, but at Wrestle Kingdom 9, he knew all the moves, he knew all the background of the Bullet Club, he knew all the background of all the Japan wrestlers. It was like he really knew his stuff, and that's what you want from a commentator.
Yeah, exactly. I think I was really impressed when I watched Wrestle Kingdom as well. And the way that he worked with JR, I think they did a great job together. And it just showed how much knowledge and things that he has actually got. And it was kind of like well, look, this is what I can do if you actually give us the chance. So maybe they've sort of dropped the ball again with letting him go too.
Yeah, it just seems like that I don't know, they just seemed like they didn't want like a standard commentator. They just wanted to have these like legends in place of it, and it doesn't necessarily work. But my top 3 kind of does include a legend, so this would be interesting actually.
Has it got Santino in there?
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have Santino in there, and it doesn't have Buff Bagwell in there, and it doesn't have the Disco Inferno in there, so you're safe.
I thought that was your 3.
Well, you're going to be surprised. I think.
Could you imagine them 3 on commentary?
I think that'd be pretty good, actually. You just wouldn't hear much from Buff. He'd just be posing constantly. The Disco Inferno would just be dancing and complaining about Matt Hardy. And then, obviously, Santino would just be getting all the names wrong. He'd be getting Tribiachi and all that stuff. So I think it'd be pretty entertaining, to be honest. Be better.
I think that could work.
Yeah. So let me give you mine. And then I'll give you also probably, I don't know, dream scenario. I don't know. Let's think. I'll give you the realistic one. Actually, but this is kind of realistic, apart from the obvious one, which is, let's go through them. So I went with like yourself, and I think anybody puts this guy in their commentary team, it's going to be good old JR. He's in there just because he's the greatest commentator of all time. He should never have left the commentary team. They should never have shafted him. So JR, and then this is the one that I think is different, and I think it's doable. I would actually like to see Chris Jericho on the commentary team.
I totally agree with that. I was going to say Jericho, but I was trying to stick to people that have sort of done the commentary route.
Yeah. The only reason why I say it is because when you think about what he does with his podcast, and when you watched him on with Cena, it was just so easy. It just flows, and I think that if you were using JR as the calls all the moves and stuff, Jericho can then pitch in with some history, because Jericho knows his stuff. We've all seen that on his podcast, and I think Jericho would play that so simple, and he's your guy to just enhance the commentary team, and he can have those off the cuff jokes as well, because he thinks quick, he thinks fast. So I think that he'd make a perfect addition. And then I would also have, like yourself, I'd have Renee Young in there, and I'd use Renee Young a lot more to elevate the Divas division as well. So her commentary would be when the commentary for the Divas comes on, she takes a lot more control of that area. And then I think as well, she'd be very good to chip in with a woman's aspect of the match as well. So I think mine was trying to have a balance and a good mixture. And I think you've got JR with that whole keeping everybody in line. And then you've got Jericho, who can kind of be a bit eccentric, but he also always knows what he's talking about. And I think he does do it better than a JBL and a Booker T. I think he'd do it much better. If you look at guys that we've had in the past, we've had Savage and people like that try and do that role. And, I love Randy Savage, but I don't even know if that really paid off. But if you look down the line, Jericho would be a very easy person to have in there. And then, like you say, Renee Young kind of makes it look easy the way she's done the pre-shows. So that's my scenario, and I think that could work. I just think obviously JR's the one that can't come back, or it isn't likely to come back for reasons. And I'd probably do what you did. I'd probably swap him out for either Joey Styles or Paul Heyman. Do you know what? If you think about it, as a two-person commentary team, Heyman and Renee Young would be like easy because they've got a really good relationship. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the videos online with them, the way that he's almost trained her and helped her with all her talking.
Yeah, I think them two would work really well together. I mean, we've seen little bits on pre-shows and things where they've interacted, and that's always been good. So as a two-person commentary team, I think that'd be a really good choice.
And I think she would be the controller, so she would be the one that actually controls the show, and then he just chips in with his stuff. And that's what he used to do with JR. He used to just chip in and make JR be awkward. He used to rib him a bit, and that's when it works, when you get someone that does those little ribbing. You don't have someone like JBL who takes it out of context and just spoils things.
Like you said before as well about someone that brings hype to it and how Booker T is supposed to do that. Someone like Paul Heyman is someone that always does that, and that's a perfect choice for that hype commentator.
It's that voice. I think that's what it is. They've got Booker T in there because the voice is different, but it's only different when it works, and it doesn't work with him because you can't understand a lot of the stuff he's saying, or it's never in the right place. Whereas Heyman, and you can see from his promos, it's always on point. It's always, he's always looking to point something out, or he's looking to take a jab at the right moment in time, which will be, and it will come off. It always works. So, I don't know. I was thinking about commentators over the years, and you just got to go back and you cast your minds back to people like Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby the Brain Heenan. I mean, guys that are real like geniuses, and Bobby the Brain is probably my favourite commentator of all time. I just thought just the way he used to come out with jokes and the way he used to just stick it to people. And I look at what we've got now, and I just think people like him would just be so disappointed with what this current product's become.
Well, that's the thing, when you compare it to the names that you've just mentioned, it just shows how bad it is. And what I was going to ask you was what would be your worst commentary team, but I can't really see you saying anything other than what we've currently got when you compare it to everything we've seen over the years.
He was a commentator, wasn't he? Shall I drop? I'm going to say it because I think he was, or was he just a general manager? Mike Adamley?
He did ECW, if I remember, and that was pretty bad.
He was pretty bad.
So we'll substitute him for Michael Cole.
Yeah, put him in there. Who else would you add then?
I would probably have JBL and Booker T in there.
It's hard to kind of get around anyone else because they are so bad. I think the thing is with Mike Adamley, didn't he actually call? He called Jeff Hardy the wrong name on occasion. Jeff Harvey, yeah. And I think
it was Jed Harvey at one point.
I think there's a Botchamania that's dedicated to him because he was so bad.
Oh, it was a running joke. Like, I think they just put him on there and seen like how much people were having fun just listening to him and everything he was coming out with, and they just left him on there for.
I mean, yeah, Savage wasn't very good either. I mean, you just give him a pass because he's Randy Savage, to be honest. Piper wasn't too bad.
Yeah, Piper was good. I think he's another example of someone that can adapt to what's going on and just bring something different.
Yeah, there's a few out there that kind of got around it. But like I say, with the day, with all the podcasts and stuff, you've got these guys that can just talk the talk now.
Yeah, so like
I'm available.
Like I said, Jericho, yeah, go for it, apply. It can't be any worse. So you've got people like Jericho and like Taz who do the podcasts, and again, that shows like how they can change and sort of roll with what's going on. So if you want to have a perfect commentary team made up of like new people, I would go with like a Stone Cold and a Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe throw someone else in there. Don't know who you think.
Who would I throw in there? I'm not sure.
Would you have Vince on commentary at all?
I liked Vince on commentary. I did. He although he used to call it quite a lot, he was the hype guy as well. I mean, he just used to do everything, to be honest.
So you've got Vince on one side, Austin the other, Jericho in the middle.
That's like combustible, because Jericho always talks about how he used to. Well, he always mocks Vince with some of the rubbish that Vince used to tell him. I think he did an interview with Batista, and there was lots of mocking of Vince McMahon. So I can see that Jericho would definitely have issues with Vince if he was on commentary every week. And Austin, well, I don't think Austin could stand Vince every week.
Yeah, he'd be taking his ball and he'd be going home.
Yeah,
he'd be doing CM Punk.
Exactly. Do you know, it would It would be good if you could have someone just for one night, like The Rock or someone like that. The Rock would do a very good one-man show, I could imagine.
Yeah, Rock would be amazing on commentary. I can't believe we didn't mention him before.
If you think about just one night where just him on commentary on his own, that would be amazing. Just give him a night on Raw.
Say even something like that, just to like try different like people. Like instead of a guest host, a guest commentator. So you have like a different like superstar, maybe not one on the current roster, but someone that's retired and things. Like just to try it out each week, see how they work. I think that would be quite cool.
That's what I think would be good if, when they do these things, when they go old school, when they do stuff like that, then something like that novelty would be amazing. Imagine their show opens up and you see The Rock on commentary.
I can't imagine it, to be honest with you, but it would be absolutely amazing.
So that's the sort of thing that would be really cool for them to do. Or he doesn't even have to be there, to be honest. He could do some sort of voice over it, and it could be like a special on the WWE that The Rock calls Raw.
I thought you were going to say via satellite, so he's commentating the full show via satellite.
Well, maybe he could do what TNA do and just record it from Nashville, which is, I'm not sure I agree with that, but it's interesting. To touch on TNA, who do you think is going to replace Taz? Because I've done a poll on the Amino app, so if you've got it, go and vote on it. And I've also done a video talking about some few options which we could have. And I want to ask you a couple of quick questions on TNA as well. They're just random questions. But who would you have replace Taz on that side of things?
It's a hard one because I mentioned to you before, I haven't really watched TNA for a while, so I'm not entirely sure who's sort of there or who's backstage anymore. But I think Al Snow.
Yeah, they're saying Al Snow seems to be the guy at the moment.
Yeah, I think Al Snow could be a good choice. I think if you brought someone back just temporary, Mike Tenay.
No. I don't know.
Just as a temporary measure until like they got someone else, but because it was kind of weird just having like the one commentator on there this week.
Yeah, because you've heard it, haven't you?
Yeah, I've heard bits of it, but I think you definitely need two people on there. But I wouldn't have him there full time. I think it's been a much better change since he went. But just to fill the void until they get someone. But I don't know, there's Matt Striker that you mentioned. But then you've kind of got two play-by-play guys if you do that, whereas Al Snow's not that kind of commentator. So he could offer something slightly different.
Striker's with Lucha Underground, isn't he now, though?
Is he?
Yeah, so this is the thing. Like, how much do these two companies miss tricks? Because Matt Striker just sneaks under the radar. I mean, I don't get that. I don't get it. You've got guys out there who can talk the talk, and then both of these companies let them slide.
It is weird how they let people go, especially when they've like trained people up like Josh Matthews, and then for one reason or another, they just decide that he's not going to be sticking around with them.
I know, it's just mad. I think I've pretty much made it clear who I want to come back. I still want Don West to come back to TNA. I just think he's nuts.
See, I didn't like Don West.
How can you not like his insane daily deals, man?
Well, that was the thing. It was the deals. It was like, it was like before the like
and
whole network
shirts.
plug and things. It was like he started the whole thing.
Didn't you like his shirts? Come on,
I preferred King's shirts.
I don't know what it is about Don West. I just remember when you used to watch those old X Division matches, it would just be like insane. Like we just come out with like his just voice was just crazy. That's what I liked about it.
Do you think you'd work with the new team though?
With Josh Matthews, I think it could bounce off each other. The trouble is, I think with Tenay and him, it was more like old school approach. So Tenay's quite easy to wind up and he pulls his stupid faces. So I kind of see that. I think Tenay, as much as I'm not keen. I liked him back in the days of WCW, so don't always think I just hate him. But I like that the 3-man team with Schiavone. I really like Tony Schiavone as a commentator. If I'm going to put it out there, what did you think of him?
I didn't hear too much because I wasn't a huge WCW fan.
Boo.
So it was more when it ended when I started getting into it, and it was like, well, bad timing, wasn't it?
Boo! You're that WWE guy.
It's us against them.
I liked Tony Schiavone. I thought Tony Schiavone did a good job. But yeah, back in the day when Tenay was like, just a history guy, and they'd always go to him for some history, and then you'd have like Bobby the Brain there as well. That all worked very nicely. But then TNA is just a bit too much. So I kind of feel that he's been shafted though. So I think that they gave him this other show. Obviously, they removed him from the commentary team, which I thought was good. But again, from his point of view, he's seen Taz go, he's seen him move down. He must be thinking to himself, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, it's always been the case with TNA the last couple of years. They seem to, the veterans and things like that, they'll push like new people that's coming in, and then you find that they don't stick around. I mean, Taz has been there for 5 years, which I thought was like, I didn't realize he'd been there that long. I think you says you thought he'd been there longer.
Yeah.
But they always seem to like go with the wrong option, so they'll push like the wrong person. And it seems to be, in terms of the commentary team, they've done the same thing. They've pushed Taz, they've dropped Tenay, and now it's backfired again.
Well, the trouble is that it's all apparently evolving around pay, so you can't do that. You can't muck around with people's pay. And then you get all these mixed stories. Some people saying it's good, it's bad, it's ugly,
Well, that's the thing. It's something that's been going on for quite a while. Like, the missing paychecks is something that's been going on for the last 2 years or so at least. Mm-hmm. And it's something that they haven't sorted out. And again, it's cost them.
Yeah, I think they'll do what you said. I think they'll go for Al Snow because it's easy. I mean, he's already there. But it's just, I don't think it's really a big loss. I'll be honest. I don't think Taz brought a hell of a lot to the team anymore. I think his best days were in WWE, and he'd probably thrive and be a bit more excited to go back to WWE. So I think giving Josh Matthews a new partner, Josh Matthews is a really hard name to say in a commentary. You know that?
It is. It's so, but it's. We need something easier. If we could drop the first name and just go with Matthews, we'd remember it then. It'd be so much easier.
That's what we should do on We Talk. We should drop the first names and we can just say Matthews and we'll be absolutely fine. But it's sort of, I don't know. I think, again, it gives them an opportunity to be more diverse and take a risk of something and show that they're bold enough to do it, like they've done with their whole company in terms of moving to Destination America. And this was the only quick few questions on TNA I was going to ask you, was there's a lot of rumour at the moment that, this is the rumour, that Destination America doesn't necessarily understand the wrestling industry in terms of, if you think of the name of their company, Destination America, so they don't understand why TNA goes overseas, so they don't like the British tour, and this is something that apparently they've said, why are you taping your show over in the UK when you can do it in America? Because we're Destination America, that's our audience. So they don't particularly like that. So that's been brought into dispute at the moment.
But surely, if you're in the UK, then your destination's America. If you're in America, your destination isn't America. You're already there.
Well, you might think this, and when I heard this, I thought, what a load of rubbish. I think, crikey, you don't want to alienate your British audience. That's the worst thing you could do, because your European audience is what's keeping them going, by the sounds of it. But, I mean, the other thing that this company have been saying is the reason why Kurt Angle is champion is because of Destination America, because they wanted an American hero, a gold medalist. Mm-hmm. So it's all related to America again. I mean, surely we can't be that stupid. We can't be that. I mean, I don't mind Angle as champion, but surely we can't be that fickle that we're going down that route.
Well, it's something you wouldn't expect to see happening, but it's something you could probably see happening, especially with TNA team to deal with certain deals. So it wouldn't surprise me if one of the reasons behind, well, you know yourself how long it took them to get sort of a deal on TV. Mm. So in order for them to push that through and get that deal, I wouldn't be surprised if this is, well, look, you can have like a certain influence on how the program's going. And maybe that's, like you say, getting Kurt Angle the heavyweight championship.
The problem is that's really old hack thinking, and they were saying, they were putting it out there that Destination America, the reason why they went with them in the first place, as opposed to Spike, because all the issues with Spike was that they kept telling them to do Bellator, MMA, do this, do that, move time slots, and they went with this company that apparently was so flexible and could give them all the things that they wanted. And now there's little hints of things creeping out the woodwork that, we don't like you going overseas because we're Destination America. We want a champion like Kurt Angle because he's American. He gives that all of the stars and stripes and all that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on a minute. Dixie Carter tells the show what's on it, not the network. Again, this is the same problem as before. The network should not be telling you how to run your show. You're just on their network. So,
yeah, I totally agree with that. Was there not something like that in WCW as well?
I think so, because it was Turner, wasn't it? Turner
Yeah.
Network. So Turner used to say, "Oh, we need to do this, we need to do that," and it's that's the difference with WWE have extended their show for 3 hours and they're PG-ified, but when it comes to actually writing the product, I kind of think that they have a lot of the creative control, and TNA doesn't seem to do that. Dixie Carter doesn't seem to put a foot down enough in these negotiations. You shouldn't have an organisation telling you, who's your champion should be. It's the same thing, I think, with Taryn Terrell, that they've said that just because they like the way that Taryn Terrell looks, she's your champion. And it's just, watch the show maybe, understand a bit more about wrestling, and then you might have your Ethan Carters as champion. But I don't know.
It's the Knockouts champion.
Well, he might fancy that if he fancies it. But I'd say Ethan Carter's like your world champion at the moment. I mean, he's... I had a bit of a spark between a few other YouTubers online about TNA, so I might be open for a debate at some point. But I kind of covered my agreements and disagreements with how TNA should be run. But I think TNA is moving in a good direction in terms of show. If you watch a 2-hour show of TNA, you've got good wrestling on there. I don't think it's WWE-fied. I'm just going to go for it and rant. I don't think it's WWE-fied at all. I think that what it was when Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff was there, that's when it was WWE-fied. And yes, you can bang on about back in the day of when it was good and high-flying, and I liked that day. I liked it when they used to have the X Division, and they're trying to get back to that. They brought back the 6 sides, they're trying to do those things, but these things take time, and this is a company that doesn't have the money that it used to invested in.
Yeah. Would you say it's in a transitioning period at the moment, trying to get away from that WWE feeling that Hogan and Bischoff brought in?
Massively. That's exactly what it is. And you can say, oh, well, it's not what it was before, but how do you really get back there? The wrestlers that they had before, and you'll probably then focus on AJ Styles, but some of the guys they let go, the reason why they've done that is to elevate the youth. So if you look at the British talent that they're bringing into TNA, you've got your Rockstar Spuds of this world. And yeah, I think someone said, oh, they're not doing very much with Mark Andrews, who's another guy there. But at least they're willing to take these guys in, these British talent, and try and elevate them a little bit. And yeah, it's going to take time for the X Division to get back where it was. But if you look at their roster, they've got a really solid, young, talented roster there. So they've got the talent. It's just the promotion and the production of the company that seems to let them down week by week. I think even the look and the style, the new Impact logo, everything all looks very good. It's just that behind the scenes, Destination America was probably not the best network for them to go with, but I think that everything that they've done to rebrand and repackage has been... Can't really fault it. It doesn't look like WWE.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things is... People always say, well, I want it to go back to the way that it was with the likes of Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, like you mentioned. But it kind of is, because when you think about it, that was, say, 10 years, 10, 15 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. And at the time, the way that TNA was and the way that people keep saying for it to go back to, it was with guys that were up and coming and new guys. So that is what they're doing at the moment with the new people that they've brought in. It's just because everyone's become accustomed to AJ Styles and Samoa Joe and things, then they want to see those guys in there. But at the same time, they're asking for it to go back the way it was, and that was pushing new guys, which is exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing now. They're pushing all the younger guys. If you look at if you look at their company hierarchy in terms of where people are, I think they've got it all in the right positions. I mean, you've got, if Angle's going to be an active wrestler, he should be at the top of the company because he's one of your best wrestlers. He's not one of your new young talent, but Ethan Carter's kind of sitting in the mix there. He could easily just jump into that championship position because the way they've built his character, he's got a really good persona. Then you've got guys around it, like you've got your Bobby Roodes. Over time, they've made Eric Young a credible heel, which, if you cast your minds back maybe 6 years ago, you would never see Eric Young as a sort of world champion, but they've actually made him into a good heel now. He's pretty solid. You've got James Storm there as, again, another solid heel. Yeah, he did well with Beer Money, but if you're going to give him a singles run, then you want him to be, again, a bit credible. I think when he was a face, people didn't really enjoy it too much, so again, another good character. They've got Lashley there as the Destroyer, and, his title reign was done very nicely indeed, the way he just destroyed the competition. So, if you look at that top section, it's there. It's like, they've got a heavyweight division, and then you look at the lower segments where they kind of I'd love Austin Aries to be in the top bit, don't get me wrong, but you look at that middle bit and they've got guys like Aries and stuff floating around. You've got Manic, who's great. And then the tag team, they have tag team tournaments. They're trying to promote their tag team division. They've got the Wolves. They've got the Hardys back together. I mean, is this not the structure of a company that in a way we want at WWE who really want their belts focused on? The X division I'd probably say is the weakest at the moment, but they are focusing on belts. They're concerned about championships. They want to have credible champions. What's the problem?
Well, you ask what the problem is. I think to bring it from sort of another perspective of the people that you may have been having a few issues with, what I see, because I'm someone that sort of drifts in and out of TNA, so I won't watch it religiously. I'll watch it now and again. Mm-hmm. So for me, you've just mentioned that Eric Young's been brought up to be a credible heel, but for me, because I haven't been watching it, I haven't seen that process, then I turned on TNA this week to watch it, and I seen Eric Young in the main event with Kurt Angle, and it was like, well, why is Eric Young in the main event?
True.
But it makes more sense now because you've said that they've been building him up and that he is more credible now. But for someone that's a WWE fan and they just watch TNA occasionally, then you turn on, you see Eric Young, and you're like, well, it's Eric Young against Kurt Angle. It's not what you would really want to see. So that's kind of the perspective of someone that sort of drifts in and out from it and doesn't really commit to it. So it would be kind of blind for me to go off and say, why is Eric Young in the main event when I haven't actually followed the show?
Well, that point there is like, I completely agree. Like that's the trouble is, if you don't invest your time, then you're going to just automatically be critical of it and say, well, Eric Young wasn't any good before, or he was good before, but he was different before. And you're going to criticize what Eric Young's become now because you're not going to understand it. And I think a really good example, because we're sort of talking about all of this now, another really good example of it is someone like Lashley. So WWE, yeah, they tried to make him their best guy, but I don't always think Lashley's run was that amazing in WWE. But if you took some time out and watched Lashley's progression from coming into TNA, becoming champion, the way that he defended his championship over time, the way that he was destroying the competition. And if you watch that and you look at that from a period of time of exactly how they did utilize Lashley, and you can go and say, oh, well, they're just bringing in ex-WWE guys, but come on, there's only one major company out there at the moment, really. Yeah, there's a New Japan, but WWE's the one. And why wouldn't TNA go and try and pluck some of these guys if they get an opportunity, like they've done with an Ethan Carter, and elevate them like that? So you look at Lashley and you've got to think to yourself, well, that run, that period, that's like a credible run as a champion. There was no wishy-washiness. They saw their course and they went with it. So when I look at those things, I think to myself, that's the way I expect things to go as a company. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, the shows are good. It's all the other bits outside of it which are making TNA become the talk of the town. The not paying people, the constant chopping and changing of the brand, the Impact Wrestling TNA. What is it? It's those things that their pay-per-view structure. It's not there. It's those things that make it a problem, but not the thing where you say 10 years ago it was high flying, great, big deal. You've got to move on. They don't have that much money anymore either. So it's, they've made mistakes. And I'm pretty sure if you actually got some honesty out of Dixie Carter, she'd say, yeah, we messed up by paying Hogan and Bischoff a lot of money to come in and change our ring and whatnot. But what do? WWE have been through that phase.
Yeah, well, I think it's something that most companies will go through. Like, in terms of wrestling, at least, they'll have that transitioning period. And like I say, that's something that TNA is in at the moment. The only other problem for me is because the tape's so much in advance, then that kind of kills it, especially if you're someone that, like me, where I sort of post the results and things on a website, then I kind of avoid reading what's going to happen. And then that kind of ruins it for me going ahead. And it's one of the reasons why I don't really watch TNA as much, and I'll watch it more for like the bigger things. So if they were doing it live, then it would be something that people will be much more attracted to because they don't know what's going to happen. And when it's live, anything can happen. So they proved that when they done the first live show and people like Jeff Hardy turned up. And that's always good. That's one of the best things about wrestling, not knowing what's going to happen. But when you know what's going to happen, that is what kills it. But if they haven't got the money to go live, then you kind of fault them for it.
Yeah, again, I can't. You know, I'm not just gonna like fly the flag of TNA. There are issues there, and that's another one. And I'd add to that the commentary being dubbed puts a massive issue on the actual sound, because when I went to the TNA London show, and that crowd was really loud. It was like proper electric. And when I watched it back on TV, how undervalued was us as fans, because by the time they dubbed the commentary, they ducked all the music, it just sounded nothing like the event that I went to. So
yeah, that's something I was going to ask you. For Raw itself, did you watch that back?
I've seen bits of it, and again, I've heard they dubbed some of our chants, and I don't like any of that aspect of the industry. We've paid money, we'll say what we like.
Yeah, because I was listening to it, and I thought it, like SmackDown especially, it didn't seem as loud. And I know there were a few questionable chants on Raw, so I could understand them maybe like taking out some of them, but they actually left some of them in. So there was a lot of chants towards the Big Show that they left in, which I thought they might have tried to take out a little bit. But it's interesting. He did, didn't he? It's just the way that sort of they handle it, and it makes you wonder. You are taking a lot away from the product, not just in WWE, but TNA as well, like you've been talking about, how they dub the chants and things. It just adds to the atmosphere, and I think you get more if you leave that in.
Yeah, I can't stand the whole overlaying of boos and cheers. It's like, oh, you've got to add cheers for this guy. It's like, well, the crowd make that decision who they boo and cheer for, not... Otherwise, you take the element away of the realism, and that's the part of the show. It's supposed to be in the reality area where you let people cheer and chant if you're going to go down that route. And I just find, as a product, WWE still have got it much better, but TNA, when they do it, it even just feels like it's on mute. I'll be honest, like the sound quality is just not there. They're sacrificing a hell of a lot to record outside. But like you said, it's that whole recording in advance. It's good. I mean, the fact that they're getting their shows done, and then they allow their talent to work indies and stuff like that. But that doesn't benefit the product. It just benefits the talent. And
Could it not just be the equipment though as well? Like because the WWE have such a large amount of money that they'll put towards the staging and the sound, microphones, everything. Where TNA, it's not that kind of huge setup that the WWE have. So do you think that could maybe be one of the reasons that you don't hear it come across the same way on TV?
Yeah, possibly. But before it was better. So I think it's just the whole dubbing of the commentary being done in Nashville. But I would say as well that you and I have spotted this as well. The challenge representation of TNA is no way as good as what the one shown in Destination America or when it was on Spike. The challenge version of it is just quite cutty and choppy, and you can't get into it.
Yeah, it is. It's quite messed up the way that they're doing it.
It's not a good edit. So that's another thing that's a bit of a problem. I mean, we could go and pick it to bits, but you can kind of see what the argument is here. It's not... I don't think the argument is that TNA as a bad show. I think TNA has issues behind the scenes which they need to iron out. And then if you do get the chance and you watch the shows consistently, you might have a different thought process than just it's rubbish or it's not very good or it sucks, because I don't know if that's a valid opinion, but I'll put that I'll leave it there.
Probably for the best.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, we'll see. I might end up debating that at some point, but it'd be good fun. That's what it's all in aid of. We all love wrestling, and we all want to talk about it. So, yes, it kind of brings us to the end. We went off on a bit of a tangent on TNA, but maybe you guys want to hear us talk more about TNA, and that will force Paul to watch it a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, should do.
But I mean, that kind of brings us to the end of We Talk, so I want to get you guys involved as per usual. So let us know your thoughts on our top 3 commentators. Give us your dream scenario of who you'd like in the commentary booth at the WWE. Give us your views on Daniel Bryan. Do you really think that this could be another massive problem for Bryan, maybe having to give up the Intercontinental Championship? What do you think of Austin versus McMahon 100? And Taz, could he actually come back to WWE? That's what I'm putting out to you guys. And if you want to get involved in the TNA conversation as well, of course, you're more than welcome. Paul, it's been awesome having you here for another week. I want to say thank you for joining me whilst the professor's been away. He actually returns tomorrow, and I'm going to an ICW event tomorrow night, so...
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah, so we're going to get serious extreme. The homicidal, suicidal, genocidal Sabu is going to be there. So, I don't know, he's probably going to be diving in the crowd and everything. It's going to be very interesting. And Grado versus Shah Samuels, which will be good because the British side's always a good laugh. So, yeah, he returns tomorrow, but it's been awesome having you here for the last couple of weeks. And I'm sure you'll be back on the show again regularly because, it's always a pleasure to talk wrestling with yourself.
Yeah, it's been great. I've enjoyed it. And I'm sure the amount of holidays that Weeds have, it won't be long before he's off on holiday again.
I know. Him and Mike just love to go on those little romantic holidays together, so...
It's all these breaks away together.
Exactly. Just to let you guys know, obviously tonight we've got Saturday Night Main Event, our first pay-per-view, so it is the big one. It's Extreme Rules. The main event is Seth Rollins versus Cesaro in my Universe mode. That's match 2. They went 1-on-1 in the finals of the championship tournament, and Rollins was crowned the first champ, so it's going to be interesting to see how that gets on. We've got an undercard, I think, of Ziggler versus Jericho, and as well we've got Sheamus versus Ambrose for the Intercontinental Championship, and Kevin Owens has got an open challenge as well, so who's going to accept that? That is the full match card of Saturday Night Main Event Extreme Rules, and hopefully it's going to be better than what we get from the WWE product, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I've heard there's some other universe modes out there, so hopefully guys you will just check this one out and hit that like button as well. Paul, have you got anything you want to put out there to the masses?
If you're interested in the new WWE mobile game, then I uploaded all the entrances for that yesterday. So that's all in one video if you want to check that out. And I did have a few problems recording, but I seem to be over that now. So I'm going to have an overview of the game, kind of like a little review, just to let you know what's in there in case you fancy picking that up. So check that out on the channel tomorrow.
Cool. Yeah, definitely go and check out that game. It's the entrances look pretty awesome from what I've seen.
It's quite surprising for a mobile game what they've pulled off. I mean, the controls are the one thing that I would say is hard to get used to, especially if you're playing on a phone. It might be easier on an iPad where it's a bigger screen, but because it's all touch-based, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. So, I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes once you kind of get used to it.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't grabbed it yet, but I'll try and grab it this week and see what I think. But yeah, make sure you go head over to Smack Talk's channel, and I'll leave a link and everything in the description box below. But it kind of brings us to the end of another We Talk. And Paul, do you want to say your trademark catch you later to everybody?
Yeah, it's been great being on, and I guess this is Smack Talks signing out.
Oh, you're stealing my one now. I see. Ah, very nice. Yes, this is We Talk. I'm going to do it better than you, like you said last week. This is Delzinski and Smack Talks signing out.
Hi, wrestling fans and gamers. Velvet Sky here, and I just want to say I've been hearing a rumor that Delzinski.com is the best place for video gaming and wrestling content. Now, if you're a wrestling fan and a hardcore gamer like myself, then I suggest you check out Delzinski.com. You will not be disappointed. Holler!